We'll fix it. Yeah. And we've known that it's an issue, but people have been able to work within the regulations and it's not been a huge deal. But there are a lot of properties that have flag lots down South Shore Drive. If you think of the flag lots we approved right by where Mike was talking about, over on East 8th Street there with those properties way in the back.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the way the ordinance reads is you cannot have a fence in your front yard, period. So that's anywhere between the front line of your house and the street.
I think technically I was like,
I don't know. So that means even if your house is 200 feet back from the road, you still can't put a fence between your house and the front property line. So we're gonna make some changes to address some of those concerns.
What about the rule about what is the front of the house on a corner lot?
Yeah, Jenna asked that question too.
And that has really caused a lot of trouble. Like when you just said you can't have a fence in your front yard, well, my front yard is actually my side yard.
Right.
It's my front yard. and
Right,
And so it restricts me because it's not truly my front yard.
Right.
That's on another street, where my address is.
right.
You know, but it just seems like it would be worth looking at to see whether there's any reason to change that.
Sure. My immediate thought is I hesitate to change it because then we've got a whole bunch of properties that now become non-conforming. Because they were built with the front yard being the narrowest
Yeah,
lot dimension along a street.
yeah,
So now if we change it,
yeah.
your side yard is not gonna meet the front yard setbacks. So you can't build steps, you can't build a deck, you can't enlarge your house.
Is there any way that an owner could request?
We'll still leave opportunities in to come to the Board of Appeals. We're gonna try to streamline those a little bit more. And so, and maybe that's a hardship with the property.
Yeah, okay.
And maybe that would not be self-created if your house was built 100 years ago.
yeah.
I don't think you have to.
He's taking the chair pretty serious. All right, thank you. This is the time and the place for the meeting of the Board of Appeals for the City of Holland. We are here to respond to applications for construction, zoning variances, and/or special exceptions, housing, and dangerous structures. The board must try to interpret each application as it relates to city ordinances. This board is not empowered to rezone or to take any action that could be considered rezoning. Variances must meet 4 crucial tests in order to be granted. Those of you who are here for a variance have already answered questions about the tests on your application. We will be asking you again about those answers again tonight. When your application is called, we ask that you come to the microphone and speak and state your name and address. We will hear the applicant first and anyone supporting the application, then anyone in opposition to it. Typically, we'll hold a public hearing on an application and then deliberate and decide on that application before moving on to the next application. You are welcome to stay for the deliberations, but there is no opportunity for further public comment. If you elect not to stay for our deliberation and decision, you can call City Hall after 8:30 tomorrow morning to learn the results. We will hear applications in the order that they were submitted and appear on the agenda. With that said, will our clerk please read our first agenda item?
Yes. So the first item is for 495 Harrison Ave for application number 20.21H. Max Spielman is requesting a variance to continue using a joint sewer at his house at 495 Harrison. The ordinance requires separation of building sewers when the public sewer is repaired or replaced in the public right-of-way, 29-38 and 29-46.
Thank you. Is the applicant present here and wish to speak? No? Is there any questions of the board? Is the applicant here?
It does not appear the applicant.
Okay. All right. And then, any questions from the board on this? We've received their application and their questions and their answers. on their application? All right then.
I just have a concern. I'm wondering if the applicant would be willing to separate this line at such a time that one of the sewer lines fails and needs to be replaced? Or does the applicant think that this joint sewer should be separated when Harrison Avenue is reconstructed? Those two things, I wonder whether the applicant would be willing to commit to doing that. With, I like to just read that into the record anyway.
Mhm.
And I think, right, Ron, those are conditions that the board could put upon, if they chose to move on this application and make a decision tonight, the board could condition if they chose to approve with those items.
Right, you can put those conditions on if you decide to go forward and approve it. One of the things I guess I would also caution is if your desire is to deny it, then I would suggest tabling it and see maybe why the applicant is not here tonight, to give them a chance to come in. But if you feel that you want to go ahead and approve it, and you feel you have enough information, there's certainly no reason you can't do that without the applicant here. You have his application.
Well, I do think that the applicant, Max Spillman, did explain the background and reason for the request. He understood that, or he was not aware that he was gonna have to replace this. I'm not certain he was aware he was hooked up with the adjacent property. But I don't know that he explained an alternate plan, number 2 of his application for using the sewer line without separating from the neighbors. I'm not certain he's aware that he will likely have to replace it if it fails or Harrison is done. But I suppose I'd motion to approve with those 2 conditions.
I do need to do a public hearing
Mm-hmm.
real quick,
Okay.
so at this time.
I think we
I'll-
should move forward, Chairman.
I'm sorry?
I think we should continue.
Yeah.
My comment would be.
Move forward.
We do have something from the Board of Public Works that
Correct.
is supportive of this, so to
Yeah.
move forward should not be a gigantic issue.
Well, I'll still open a public hearing to just to go through the formalities here. And at this time, ask anybody wishing to speak in support of the application to come to the podium. Anybody wishing to speak in opposition, please come to the podium at this time. Seeing nobody there, I will close the hearing, and now we can take a motion to move forward on this application.
And I make a motion to approve with conditions.
Support.
Okay,
Can you restate those conditions? just for the record?
thank you, yes,
Yeah,
please,
state
I was
those.
just gonna ask him to go through
Applicant did
those.
explain the background and reasons for the request. BPW did submit a staff report that I believe you're all seeing here, with the recommendation to continue using the joint sewer at the property. Approved with conditions that the joint sewer shall be separated at such time that one of the sewer lines fails and needs to be replaced, and the joint sewer shall be separated when Harrison Ave is reconstructed.
I would still support those conditions.
Any further discussion or questions from our board? Seeing none, let's move to a vote.
All right, the motion is to approve with conditions. Fusick,
Yes.
Bedard,
Yes.
Van Antwerp,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
and Sorek.
Yes,
Vote passes.
thank you. Okay, and moving into our second item quickly on the agenda.
All right, so the second item is for 431 Central Avenue, application number 20.22Z. Katie and Ryan Kuja are requesting a variance to install a 3-foot tall fence without a setback at their property, located at 431 Central Avenue. The ordinance requires a 1-foot setback from the city sidewalk. The zoning board of appeals may approve this variance if certain conditions are found to exist. 39-11.
Thank you. Okay, is there an applicant here present? please come to the podium. Please state your name and address.
Hi, I'm Katie Kuja, 431 Central, and
I'm her husband Ryan, 431 Central.
Thank you. Okay, if you could, explain the situation for your application.
yeah, first I'll say the wording on that paragraph is a little wrong. The fence is already in place and has been in place since end of April maybe of 2019. And our contractor installed the fence. I know the ordinance changed. Well, I now know the ordinance changed in December of 2018. And our contractor obviously did not know that and installed our fence for us. And now we're here requesting that our fence can stay. We have landscaping in front of our house that prevents it from having that 1 foot setback that would make it look at all normal in our neighborhood. It's a very uniform thing in our neighborhood. Almost every single neighbor has the fence all the way to the sidewalk in our part of town. And there's no safety issue with it that we envision or see. And with our current landscaping and what we have in our yard, we have a pretty narrow side yard there. It would really not work in our yard.
Did you take the permit out, or did the contractor take the permit out?
We did.
Oh.
We had no idea that we even needed a permit for a fence. We had just moved back to Holland. I grew up here, but was away for a little while, just moved back.
The rule of thumb is you want to do anything, find out for a permit.
Yeah, we had no idea.
Most everything.
Yep, actually didn't even own the house at the time. We were doing a,
When you did receive the permit, was the condition that you have a 1 foot setback listed on your permit?
it was, yes, I see that now.
was
I did
there.
not see that.
Didn't
even-
notice it at the time?
No, I just signed my name and said, here's $30 or whatever the
Okay.
fee is.
But the permit was acquired after the installation of the fence?
That's correct.
Can't see who's talking over there. Thank you.
That's correct. We didn't know we didn't need a permit for the fence because we hired a contractor, and that, he didn't say we needed a permit, so it was kind of in his hands.
And then, yeah. We haven't done any major remodels or anything to anything, so we didn't realize that
Uh-huh.
permit was even needed.
All right, just a real quick, you installed the fence in April of 2019,
I think it was the end of April of 2019.
and you pulled the permit, and the permit was issued over a month later?
Yeah, well,
After?
yes, because the fence was built,
Okay.
and then we got notice from the city that, oh, you needed to have a permit. So we came here and grabbed a piece of paper and paid the money, and that was it. And then I think we were supposed to call somebody to come back, but I might also add that at that time, I think I was 6 months pregnant with triplets, so things were a little foggy in our brains at that time. So needless to say, we forgot to call back the person to come check it out as things got a little wild for us.
This is a question for staff. Was, when the fence was first installed without the permit, was the rule for a 1 foot setback in place at that time?
Yes, it was.
It was, so it didn't come after that.
Correct.
What is the reason for a 1 foot setback on a sidewalk? I mean, why is this an important issue for the city?
Sure, that's a great question. So I had a conversation with the superintendent of our streets department yesterday and asked the same question.
Uh-huh.
Are we crazy for requiring a 1 foot setback? And his response was that when the sidewalk plows run in the city in the winter, the blade of the sidewalk plow is as wide as the sidewalk.
Uh-huh.
So they do want at least a 1 foot setback. They would prefer more,
Uh-huh.
so that there's a place for the snow to go when they push it.
Uh-huh.
And also when they do sidewalk repairs and they lift sidewalk squares, or when there's a street reconstruction project, a lot of times the fences that are put right up to the sidewalk get in the way
And get
or get
damaged.
damaged,
Mhm.
or the homeowners have to take them out because they're in the way of work that needs to be done in the public right of way.
Okay. So this isn't one of those rules that was just passed 100 years ago and no one cares about it any longer. It's something that the Streets Division still feels is a very important thing.
Yes, we're in the process of rewriting our ordinances, so that was one of the questions, was should we keep this 1 foot setback?
Yeah,
So staff is supportive, and the other city departments are supportive of keeping the 1 foot setback, because it is important for sidewalk work and cleaning the sidewalks in the winter. So we understand and agree there are a lot of fences out there that were installed before this new ordinance was
I
passed.
noticed that. Mhm.
And that happens all the time when we change ordinances. When we change our sign ordinances, there are bigger signs out there now than what are allowed today.
Yeah.
So it does take a while for the visual impacts of the ordinance change to take effect.
Yeah,
But yes, we plan to keep the 1 foot setback moving into the future.
yeah. So usually contractors try to keep up to date with what the rules in the city are also, in case the.
Yeah,
problem
it had just changed. I believe it changed, January 1st, so just a couple months before
I
he
see.
installed it.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I don't remember off the top of my head the date that the ordinance got approved.
Uh-huh. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from our board?
So, I mean, in cases like this, is the contractor liable for the work that was done, or is the property owner responsible for what goes on at the property? Because when I put my fence in, I had to assume responsibility, and I had to tell the contractor where to put things. I remember asking them if they knew about the ordinances, and they said, oh, no, we're not really sure. So I had to be on top of that. Is there a liability issue?
It's hard to tell because it depends on their contract, what their contract with the contractor provides for.
Mhm.
There may be, there may not be. I just can't say without knowing more.
Okay. And so this 1 foot setback is being applied to, what, 2 sides of the property there? The fence goes around both sets of sidewalks, city sidewalks
Yes.
there? Okay. All right, so if you had to set it back a foot, or at least a foot, in order to comply, what would that require?
It would require, let's see, we have landscaping in the front, mature landscaping in the front, so we'd have to rip out those bushes or do something there to move it back, otherwise bring it in front of the bushes, which just looks, it's just not an appropriate look. So that would be weird, and then along the other side, it's really just the fence is cemented in. We would lose a bunch of our yard, a foot or more, whatever, of our yard with that, and that's our skinny side of our lawn there. That's, yeah.
So if you were to comply, if you went through all that in order to comply with the 1 foot setback, would you still be able to use your property for what you intend?
I would. Now, what I would also like to mention is our neighborhood. Our neighborhood is probably different than where most of you live, I would assume. Our neighborhood is,
Please don't.
so those bushes are bushes in front, as I stated in the application, become a nice garbage, a very nice garbage for our neighborhood, I guess. So prior to the fence, that is just full of litter and garbage and you name it, it's in those bushes. So moving that fence back will then bring the garbage back to our yard, back to the fence, or back to those bushes, which is a big pain for everyone, and there's the real safety issue in my mind, is all of that happens there. And so that's the biggest problem, besides just the fact of having to move the fence that's currently in its place.
Have you spoken to the contractor about this? About
Um,
why he didn't comply, or did your contract include that he needed to build a legal fence or anything like that?
There wasn't a written contract. It
Oh.
was just done the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of those deals. We
Yeah.
had heard good things about this guy. He
Yeah.
came, we spoke, we trusted him.
Yeah,
He told us his plan, and we said, okay, let's do it. When he was done, we paid him.
yeah, okay.
Any other questions from our board? Okay, thank you very much. And at this time, I will open a public hearing. And anybody else who wishes to speak in support of this application, I welcome them to come forward at this time. Anyone in opposition, they're also welcome. Seeing nobody, I will close the public hearing and look for deliberation from our board.
Well, it looks like a pretty straightforward lot, really nothing unique as far as I can tell, you know, besides being city lot. There's a lot of
Mhm.
city lots that are 50 by 150 or whatever they are, you know. I don't think, it was
Hey-
created, it appears like.
Hey, John,
Yes.
can you talk into the microphone so we
I'm
can hear
sorry.
you? Thank you.
It seems like it may have been, the issue with it was self-imposed. We already asked about whether or not it was, the 1-foot setback would prevent you from, using your property. I'm just going through some questions for the criteria here. Is the 1-foot setback a requirement, the variance, a minimum necessary? Or, is there another amount of setback that would provide relief? So it's either minimum of what foot is what's in there. And then it says, do you think the registered variance would cause a negative impact to the owners or the neighbors, and it doesn't appear that way? So I think just those 5 items are something that should be considered. That's the way I see those 5 items, I guess is my point. If there's any more discussion about those or not.
Well, I think everybody feels it's a very unfortunate circumstance that this happened this way, but nonetheless, there are some pretty clear rules that we follow in administering or drawing interpretations on the city ordinances, and so I think it's just a very unfortunate thing, but I think the ordinance is quite clear as well, and so it's one of those things that's just too bad from my perspective.
And it's also annoying because I live with neighbors that had, their fences installed before the ordinance. So it looks different
Yeah,
around my neighborhood than what I had to abide by, but, yeah, I still did, so. All right, so with that, I would like to make a motion, to.
Thank you.
To deny the request for variance.
I support.
We have a motion, we have support. Do we have some findings of fact, Matt?
There are not unique physical conditions with the property present. It's a corner lot, just like mine, so there's nothing unique about the property that has to be taken into account. The need for the variance, unfortunately, was created by the property owner, simply not being aware that a permit was required. And then strict compliance will be annoying, to be sure, but it will not prevent them from using their property as their home. So those are the 3 main ones for me.
Any other discussion from our board? Not seeing any, I think we're ready. Oh, I'm sorry. Matt.
Just ask one question. Tricia had indicated concerns that the city staff had over the fence being 1 foot or not being 1 foot back. Were you going to include those as part of negative consequences, or?
What that not having 1 foot setback could result in a collision with the snow plow in winter and potentially an issue with the snow buildup. Yeah, I suppose that could be a fourth reason to add to the situation too.
Thank you. I think we're ready for a vote on this.
All right, the motion is to deny. Davis,
Yes.
Van Antwerp,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Fusick,
Yes.
Bedard,
Yes.
and Sorek.
Yes,
Vote passes.
thank you. All right, and I think we're on to our third item on the agenda.
Yes, so this is for 435 Central Avenue, application number 20.23Z. Ron Beckel, on behalf of No One Lives Alone, is requesting a special exception to provide reasonable accommodation to operate a recovery residence for 6 unrelated persons with disabilities at the house he owns at 435 Central Ave. The ordinance prohibits more than 4 unrelated persons to reside in a single dwelling unit. 39-17.4, 39-2, 14-4.14D.
Thank you. And do we have somebody representing the applicant here today?
Hi, I'm Ron Bechtel. I'm Executive Director of No One Lives Alone. I reside at 248 12th Street. The corporate offices of No One Lives Alone are at 238 West 15th Street.
Thank you.
I have asked Tricia to do some slides to basically go over a little bit of the background and what this request is based upon. I thank you for listening to this. The intention is to have 7 people living in one house. The house is designated as a duplex. The way it's functioning is as a one program part up and down. So the requirement is moving 4 to 6 people upstairs, but the total will be 7. I want to be clear about that. So there is plenty of space, and we'll show some of those pictures as we go through to accommodate this, and Tricia and Dan were out there to measure those things. So first I would like to just look at 3 things. This won't take very long. I'll just do it very quickly. To talk about first what happens at a sober house, what the function is, what the reason is for how this works as a part of the treatment process. 2, why there's a need for a house for women in Holland. And then 3rd, why this specific house. So the first thing is it's a place of safety and both physical and emotional safety. The pictures that you will see are of women in the house. The person that you can identify is Anna, our Hope College intern. So just stick with the first one. Yeah, okay. All right, physical and emotional safety. The women who come into this house have to meet several criteria. First, they have a diagnosed substance use disorder. Most of the time, they're coming from a treatment facility after having completed a 90-day recovery treatment program. They are homeless, and they do not have another place to go to reside. They've come to, people move into a sober house for the purpose of staying there for a longer period of time, 6 months to a year, sometimes longer, to get to be at a place where they are able to live a sober life. A little bit more about that. But the first thing they need is a place where they are safe, physically, emotionally. Many of them are coming out of housing situations which were not part of a healthy lifestyle, or where they were physically or emotionally in danger. Next one. So the second thing is that a sober house is not several people sharing the same place. Our sober program at NOLA Sober Living is, first of all, a place of intentional community. The women live in community with each other. They have a shared meal once a week. They are expected to interact and support one another's recovery. There's a meeting business meeting every once a week where they sit around and talk about the business of the house, chores, finances, anything that needs to go on within the business of the house, and then also a recovery meeting where they support each other's recovery. So it is not just unrelated people, which is the request, of course, but that this program involves them interacting with each other, and part of being a caring community. Next. One of the key functions of a sober house is what I call building healthy habits. Most of the people, by the time a person reaches a place where they're looking for a sober house, both male or female, they've burned a lot of bridges, and they don't really have many options left. Part of it has been years, in most cases, of a lifestyle that has become increasingly dysfunctional and led to a way of living which is self-destructive. And getting someone clean and sober in a 90-day program is really only the beginning point. The critical piece happens next, going to a place where they can be safe, where they can be cared for, but also where they can learn to change their behavior patterns so that they can learn how to live a healthy life. To live, first of all, learning how to keep a job, learning how to manage your finances. One of the first things we do is we help them get a job. They're expected to work, they're expected to contribute to the program, and to function and do chores with one another. To develop basically a way of living that has not been a part of of the past for most of the people. Okay, next. The second is, the last is support and guidance. One thing that's unique about our NOLA program, and that I'm very proud of, is unlike most recovery house programs, NOLA is much more encompassing of the kind of support that we give. Sober houses typically have a house manager who's responsible for maintaining the functioning of the house, and in most cases, maintaining a contact with each person and helping them to maintain sobriety. The NOLA program goes one step farther. In addition to the functions of the house, which is done by the house manager, we also have a staff recovery coach who is not living on site, but who comes and meets regularly with the women and gives recovery coaching, guidance, and direction to the process. So it is a very clear process. It's a program with the expectation that we can guide women to step-by-step into healthier life and a healthier way of being in relationship and in moving forward in their life. It takes different women different lengths of time. They are expected to stay clean and sober. There is random drug testing regularly. And women are expected that when they are there, they will be clean and sober. The couple things that is what doesn't happen at a sober house. This is not a detox program. People who come here are not high and coming to get clean. These are people who have either finished a predominantly 90-day recovery program or have had, when they're coming, they're clean and sober, and they have a length of time. There's a little bit of flexibility in how long that is because of the way people go through recovery. Some people go through a recovery program for 90 days, they'll come out, they'll get high, they'll relapse, and then go to a 2-week detox or cleanup program, and then be able to come to a sober house so that they're not coming directly in to dry out. Also, this is not a defined process. We have support and we have a program, but there are not steps that you go through. There's not levels that you move up. You stay and work the program as long as they're participating and moving forward in the program. We will provide support to each person as they need it, depending on how they come to be where they're at. Some people come with very different places in terms of functionality and the ability to function in a healthy way. This is also not permanent housing. This is transitional. The period of transition varies according to how long a woman needs to stay, but it is not a permanent housing situation, and they know that, and this is expected. And they look forward to that. They're looking forward to a place where they have their money saved up, they have relationships built up, they have a life that's healthy, and they can move into their own apartment or buy a house and with things going on. All right, the next thing is the need for a house. It has become increasingly clear in the research and in the literature across the country that recovery residences are critical. People get into habits of using, and it's hard to break an addiction, and they need to have a place where they can have a prolonged period of time living a sober life. It is too expensive and unnecessary to keep people in a hospitalized program situation and a non-addictive treatment program. People need a place where they can live and yet be supported. There is a severe lack. There's only 200 recovery residences in all of Michigan. There's only 1,687 total beds in the entire state. Of all of those beds, there's only 381 beds for women. And so there is a need. There is a huge need. It has been an obvious need for a number of years in Holland. In order to meet this need, Recovery Court, the 20th District Recovery Court program and administrator, and worked with, met together with Community Mental Health, Ottawa County Community Mental Health, and other organizations that work in recovery to try to put together a housing program for women. There are over 70 beds for men in Ottawa County. There are none for women before 2019. The need is acute. It's been identified by the court system, probation, community mental health, medical providers, recovery providers. Being able to do it is hard. There have been a couple other attempts at recovery housing years ago in Holland for women that were not successful. But No One Lives Alone took on this task, and we purchased this house, and then also worked with, in conjunction with the parish of St. Patrick and St. Anthony in Grand Haven. We have a second house up there. That house had already been used for programming, so there was no needs for hearings or procedures there. That has beds for 7 women. We believe the facility here is just as good for that number of people. And so that is a necessary part of it. So it's a need. We're none, and there was a lack. And so there's an asterisk by 14 because we have 7 in Grand Haven, and we have 6, hopefully 7 here. Okay, next slide. So why this house? First of all, it has to be close to public transportation. I know the buses aren't running right now, but that will end at some point in time. But people typically do not have a car and are not likely to be able to get to the point where they can own a car. Many have had their licenses suspended. And so being able to first walk to places that are necessary, and also to be, as you can see, it's right in the middle of all these buses. It's a great place for transportation. The building itself, we need to have a place where the bedrooms are big enough so that they can accommodate double bunking. Now, both of our houses have been certified as Level 3 recovery facilities by the Michigan Association of Recovery Residences, MAR Level 3 housing. And they have very specific requirements about how big a room has to be in order for there to be more than one person. It's 90 square feet per bed per room. So we have, the second floor has 3 bedrooms. Each of them is large enough to easily and comfortably house 2 people. And then there's a single bedroom on the first floor. There is large kitchen and communal space. They need to eat together and enjoy time together and hang out together. And so that's what it's like. And you saw the pictures of what that looked like inside. The final thing I want to highlight is a minimum of 7 occupants. This is critical. The major barrier that we face right now is financial. And funding, whether it comes from county mental health, whether it comes from other sources, whether it comes from program fees from the women themselves, is tied to an individual, not to the program. So we are funded on a per bed, occupied bed basis. We need to have 7 as a working number in order that this will average out over the course of a year, planning in vacancies, planning and looking at other expenses to make this work financially. And so that is why it's really essential that we move from 6 to 7. All right, that is all I have to say to present this. I'm happy to take your questions. Thank you.
Any questions from our board
I
members?
have a question.
Fred?
Could you tell us a little bit about the supervision of the individuals that are here? What kind of supervision takes place? Is it 24-hour? What kinds of things are looked for during the supervision of the individuals that are staying here?
Thank you. Great question. There's two people that are crucial to this. The house manager, who lives there. Now, she's functioning part of she is a participant in the program and is part of responsibilities of everybody in the program. But she also has the additional responsibilities of making sure that things flow smoothly, that people have what is needs, that stays clean, they do the chores, the dishes don't back up in the sink. So we're focusing on, that person's job is to focus on the practical running of the place.
Mhm.
Now, for recovery support, part of the recovery program is the attendance at 12-step or other support group meetings regularly, both those in the house, but also those in community, which has been different. A lot of those meetings have been virtual over the course of the thing. But also we have a certified recovery coach. We have two peer-certified recovery coaches, one in Grand Haven, one in here in Holland, and they share the responsibilities of working with the women. They meet about an hour, typically an hour each week with each woman is the schedule. Sometimes that's longer if a woman has more needs, sometimes not as long as if things are going well for her. But the context is that over the course of months, these weekly meetings this person becomes a person who can support the decisions and to walk with her. So because there's 7 women, there's 8 meetings, the recovery coach is in the house a lot.
Mhm. Okay. How long what's the normal length of stay that people have that come to a place like this?
For someone who succeeds,
Uh-huh.
as far as this house goes, we don't know. Looking at other recovery houses across the state, but also in this area, a year is a good number to work with. Some less, some significantly more. But I think generally that's a good transition time.
Okay. Are they expected to pay rent?
They pay program fees,
They pay program fees.
which cover the cost of the housing, all of the utilities, parts of the program, and also other expenses that are associated with it.
I see.
Um,
Okay.
When those expenses are not paid by contracts with community coverage by community mental health or other organizations that pay for women in the house. One of the things that they're working on right now is the Recovery Court program is trying to be able to fund women as well because they believe how important this is. So that's limited funding. It's typically 30 days startup. So when someone comes, they have 30 days to get themselves settled, get a job, get ready, moving, and so. But it's being able to pay is part of what is a healthy lifestyle.
Okay. Are you a not-for-profit organization yourself?
Yes.
Okay. Are the people who stay here, can they elect to leave if they want to and not participate? Once they're here, can they elect to leave?
Yep.
They can. So
I didn't quite hear your question. I'm sorry.
a person who is diagnosed and comes and stays in this house, if they get sick of this program, can they get out of it?
Yes, they can leave.
They can leave.
Yeah. Fees are paid weekly.
Uh-huh.
So that works well with the way people are paid at work, but also they can leave, yes. They're free to leave at any time.
Okay. Do you, I know there aren't too many of these houses around that you are managing, I guess, but do you ever allow residents that are not diagnosed as people
No.
with a dependency, are they allowed to be in this house?
No, that's, MAR does not permit that.
Okay.
The waiting list is too long. It
Uh-huh.
would be irresponsible to do that. So they all have a diagnosed substance use disorder. That's a requirement.
Okay. We were going through some of the requirements that the city expects for a house like this, and there's a discussion about maintaining smoke detectors in the rooms. Is that something that you do? Do you maintain those? You have to have them according to code, but do you maintain them as well to make sure that they're operating at all times? The smoke detectors?
Yes, of course.
Oh, okay. And what about providing immediate neighbors with contact information for a representative of these applicants? Do you do that?
to do.
Your immediate neighbors, do you provide information to your immediate neighbors?
We have not provided, I have met personally with some of the neighbors and talked about it,
Uh-huh,
especially the neighbor adjoining the driveway.
yeah,
But not in general, no.
okay. I mean, would you be willing to do that? I believe that's a city requirement.
This is my hesitation. I will do what it takes, and I'm not concerned. There is very little impact on the neighborhood. And having done similar kinds of things at another venue, I am concerned about targeting or making the women who live there targets. Part of the situation is that when a woman goes to a battered women's shelter,
Hold on just a second. Can I clarify the question from staff? So our ordinance requires you to give your name and phone number to the immediate neighbors. So if the house is on fire,
Oh, yeah.
they can call you.
Okay, absolutely.
So that's the question.
Okay,
Could you give
absolutely.
a property representative or your contact information
I
to
would,
the
yes.
immediately surrounding neighbors, so if something happened, they would know who to get a hold of?
Yeah, I did that to the person on the driveway, but I can do that to other people if you require that. That's not a problem.
Yeah,
But
so
I'm
We're
happy
not
to
not the
talk to
folks
them.
living there, but the
Me.
person in charge of the property.
Yeah.
Okay, we're not asking to identify the
No,
residents
no,
to
no.
neighbors,
Right.
so.
No, I'm-
My
yeah.
concern, though, is not about identifying them personally, but identifying, there was a reason why battered women's shelters are anonymous, and many of the women here are not safe in themselves. And so I'd be very careful any of the immediate neighbors, the people who immediately adjoining properties, absolutely. And then if anybody needs my information, that's fine. The police department has my information.
Okay,
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
have no problem at all with that. Thank
Okay.
you.
thank you. Those are my questions.
You may have said this, and I just didn't hear. Is the facility licensed by the state for recovery?
The way the state works right now is LARA, state organization, does not directly license recovery residences anymore. They transferred that practice to the Michigan Association of Recovery Residences and have delegated it to them. So my attorney who filled all these out for me, told me very clearly that this level, a level 3 facility, does not require a state license, but it does require to be MAR certified, and we are certified.
And I'll provide a little clarification on that too, if I can, real quick. So the state licenses adult foster care facilities and nursing homes through LARA, and some of those facilities, but these facilities are typically not licensed by the state. If it were a state licensed facility, like an adult foster care facility or a nursing home, they would not need to go through this process. But because it is not a state licensed facility, that's why they are here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ron, you mentioned that you have a shared driveway with one of your neighbors?
No, it's not a shared driveway.
Okay,
The driveway, because it's an old house, and you see the picture there, the driveway is very close to that neighbor. And so I've had several conversations with the neighbor, and they're glad that we're there. It's better than the previous situation, which had all kinds of curious things happening. So he's happy to have us there. But I'll talk to other people, that's fine too.
okay. So the other driveway off of Central is not shared,
Oh, no, that's not shared, that belongs entirely to
that
the other
belongs
house.
entirely, although there's no fence there and it's
There is a fence,
there.
no,
but
not there, in the backyard, but not in the driveway.
But the home is offset,
Right.
not by much off of the driveway.
Maybe maybe it looks like
No.
part of that driveway is our.
The lines are a little askew.
I
Okay.
wouldn't take stock in those lines,
All
but,
right, the truly weird thing, though, is it is a shared garage.
oh,
I
it's
was
a
wondering
shared
about
garage.
that. That
Oh,
looks
okay.
interesting.
I didn't catch that.
It's also off, we go in one end, they go in the side. It's really interesting.
But walled between?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you, Trish. I appreciate that. Okay.
I don't think I've ever seen that. That's cool.
I had not seen that before either.
That's very
So
odd.
where my question is going on this is parking. I know you mentioned that several of the residences do not have driver's licenses, likely don't have cars, so the need for
Right.
public transit. Do you do you anticipate any issues with parking then?
I don't. There's 2 spots in the driveway, there's 2 spots in the garage. I'm not anticipating having 4 women with cars there. However, the rule is, if there are 4 cars and it's first come, first served, and if a 5th woman comes who has a car, then she'll have to find somewhere else to park, or won't be able to be there, because we have 4 parking spots and that's it. That's our rule.
Okay. Thank you. That's
Yeah. I don't anticipate that being much of an issue, though.
just,
But thank you.
okay. Any other questions from our board?
Shared spaces like bathrooms or anything like that, do you feel you have enough of that, being that
There's 2 full baths.
there's 2 full baths, but one was in the apartment downstairs or lack of a better word, in the
Yeah.
apartment upstairs? Will those be able to be shared across all the residents?
Yep. Yeah, they are shared.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions from our board. Thank you. Ron, thank you very much for your presentation tonight.
Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing. For anybody who wishes to come to the podium and speak in support, please, just a quick reminder, state your name and address.
Hi, my name's Breanne Umphrey, Twa. I reside at 217 Douglas Court in Spring Lake, Michigan.
Thank you.
Thanks. I actually am coming here as a representative of Wedgwood Christian Services. I've been working as a recovery coach for 3 separate programs in that agency in Ottawa County for the last 2 years. But beyond that, I started my work in advocating for people suffering from substance use disorder about 6 years ago in my own community. I'm here tonight really with the hope that coming together as a community, we can understand the need and the necessity for these recovery homes, and specifically transitional housing, not just for women and families, men, you know, sorry, I'm a little flustered. You know,
It's okay, we don't bite.
with the LGBTQ community, specifically people with substance use disorder. At our organization, the 3 different programs that I work with, one is family engagement therapy. That is a program designed specifically for women with school-age children who have been diagnosed with substance use disorder. We also have a recovery management team, which is anybody over the age of 18 with a substance use disorder. And we also provide medicated assisted treatment services. I have had really the honor to work with some of the men who reside at Building Men for Life. I have watched them grow. I have watched them succeed. I have watched them move on past our program and the need for all of that accountability. But what I saw was really important in that success wasn't just coming from necessarily a detox program or a 90-day stay, right? But coming into a home like Ron was just speaking of and having that extra accountability. It's a formatted way of life. Having a recovery coach coming in or one that resides there with, you know, our house manager, and then a recovery coach that comes in. I also come in too, so I'm kind of like a backup recovery coach. All of the people that we refer to, you know, Building Men for Life or specifically NOLA, come from our programs. So they have the support that NOLA would provide in conjunction with a therapist, a case manager, and another recovery coach. So that might not always be the case for everybody, But either way, there's other service providers in the area that if they aren't affiliated with Wedgewood Christian Services, they would then be either referred to us or to another organization that would more likely have evidence-based programs, you know, to help supply these individuals with added care. The statistics that Ron was speaking of, I just really wanted to reiterate and highlight. In comparison to resources that are available in Michigan as a whole, again, 81 beds in Michigan are available to families or people of the LGBTQ community in our entire state. 81. 381 to women, just women, in our entire state. 1,205 are for men in the entire state. I wanted to make sure that that was a huge part of this, because I know as someone who works as a service provider, the need is much higher than that. And in Ottawa County, like Ron had mentioned, 14 before this year, I actually said 10. So I actually thought it was, when I had counted them in my head, I came up with 10, but 14 is where we're at. It's a large disadvantage, I think, to our community if we don't come together and try and provide enough care and enough support for these individuals. I see a revolving door. I'm trying to come up with a program to get, into Ottawa County Jail. That's another story. I won't go into that, but trying to help them succeed, I think, is our goal, and not to watch them fail. And if they don't have services or the support or a place to go, where do they go? And that's what we're trying to do. Trying to find a place for them to go, to feel safe. And Ron briefly touched on the trying to keep it private with our clients where they are, especially women, because we have one home in this town, one home in this community that services women who are struggling with, domestic abuse and violence. And they have a waiting list. So, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And if you have any questions.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else to speak in support of this application? Anybody who wishes to approach the podium and speak in opposition of this application? Okay, then I will close the public hearing and look to my fellow members of the board.
I'm ready to make a motion unless someone has something else they wish to say first.
I hope that they have more houses in the near future. By the sound of it, there's a great need.
Great need for it, I agree. Okay, I move that we approve the request for a special exception to provide reasonable accommodation to operate a recovery residence for 6 unrelated persons with disabilities at 435 Central Avenue.
Support.
I have some things to go through. The requested accommodation for a group of individuals with a disability is protected under fair housing laws. The accommodation is necessary to make housing available for these individuals. The accommodation does not impose an undue financial or administrative burden on the city. The request does not require a fundamental alteration in the nature of the city's zoning program, and there is not an alternative accommodation which may provide an equivalent level of benefit to the applicant. I'd also like to add some conditions on this motion. May I do so now?
Yes,
Mr.
please.
First of all, the applicant must maintain smoke detectors at all times at the facility. The management should not or shall not allow the residence to be occupied by persons without disabilities. And the applicant shall provide its immediate neighbors with contact information for a representative who will be reasonably available to resolve problems. Those are the conditions I'd like to add.
Support.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion, we have support, we have conditions, we have findings of fact. Do we have any other questions from our board?
Just wanna know if Ron has any questions.
It's where I was gonna go next. Thank you, John. Can I get a nod from our city attorney?
I think we're pretty good. I think that, I just want to make sure, do we catch all these additional factors that are potential here? I think that it's pretty clear, license not required. They're a member of MAR, they meet that additional requirement. It's not really a requirement, but it's consideration. They have the on-site management. I think, is that part of your findings too?
I hadn't considered to do that, so, because I was just simply trying to do, what was required by them.
Yep.
But I'm very happy to include the additional factors.
Okay. And then there's a request accommodation benefit the people of the program, or how will it? I think you've already addressed that.
Mhm.
The 500 feet distance requirement, well, we'd heard from Tricia in the pre-meeting that that's not a problem. So there's no evidence that it is a problem.
All right, the property is managed by a person living on site.
Yep.
Yes, that's an important thing.
Okay. Now, are there any modifications necessary to protect the occupants or the neighborhood? I didn't hear any, but is there anything?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. And adequate parking, we heard about parking, is that, you're
Mhm.
finding that adequate?
Yes.
Okay, with those clarifications, I think we're good to go.
Okay.
Thank you. Then I think we're prepared to take a vote on this.
All right, the motion is to approve with conditions. Van Antwerp,
Yes.
Bedard,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Fusick,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
and Sorick.
Yes,
Vote passes.
thank you. Thank you very much for this service to the community. Okay, and next on our agenda would be the approval of our minutes. Draft minutes were sent out. Has everybody had time to review them?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes as submitted.
I'll support that.
Any other discussions? Okay, all in favor of that, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? None opposed, the minutes are approved, thank you. And then our next meeting date is October 22nd, 2020. One last item on the agenda.
Adjournment.
Yes,
I move we adjourn.
Support.
all right, and we are adjourned, thank you.